Hello and welcome to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz, and today we got 10 questions. One of the best people in this industry, ladies and gentlemen, co-founder of Establish the Run, the GOAT of the fantasy football industry himself, Evan freaking Silva. You can find him on Twitter at Evan Silva. Evan, happy week 13, man.
What's up, Ian? Yeah, man, we're flying through this season. I feel like that this last like 4 or 5 week stretch is always brutal because there are so few buys and so many games to cover. And I mean, we've never had this, influx of injury report concerns, with the addition of the COVID factor. So it's a lot of work, but it's been fun. It's very, very rewarding if you are willing to put in the work. I think that the hardest working individuals are the ones that are going to succeed, especially down this 5 week final stretch where there's only 2 teams left that have a single bye.
Yeah, I'm sure when you're writing your matchups column, I've had these articles where I'm used to writing, 13, 14 sections. When you add on those last 2, man, the full 16 games, adds up, certainly does. So everyone, as we usually do on our Thursday podcast episode, I had 10 questions that I've given Evan. He has prepared some statements and we're going to just talk through them. Check out the Wednesday edition of this podcast if you want to hear a game by game breakdown. And I'll also be on Friday to talk about some injuries to look at going into the weekend. So without further ado, let's get to it. Number 1, man, Taysom Hill. He's 2-0 as a starter. He's making his presence felt as a rusher. It's not a disaster by any stretch. Life is generally good in New Orleans for everyone except Alvin Kamara. I mean, he was once on pace to shatter CMC's reception record. Now we're wondering if he could hit 81 receptions for the 4th consecutive season inexplicably. Do you see a turnaround coming for Kamara in terms of fantasy land as long as Hill remains under center? Or are we just looking at a borderline RB1 moving forward?
Yeah, are we even convinced that he's a borderline RB1 at this point? Yeah, I know it's shocking to our system because, for the first 11 weeks of the season, Alvin Kamara was the clear-cut RB1 overall play, and then all of a sudden it's like a new season for Alvin Kamara, and Drew Brees had 11 fractured ribs and a punctured lung, and we can't really expect him back anytime soon. And they're winning with Taysom Hill, so they're probably not going to throw in Jameis Winston either. The 2 compounding factors working against Alvin Kamara, number 1, the fact that Taysom Hill is a true dual threat quarterback. And over the years, as we've seen, dual threat quarterbacks tend not to, this has been the problem with David Johnson and even Duke Johnson in Houston, dual threat quarterbacks tend to run in situations where Drew Brees or Phillip Rivers or Tom Brady would stand there and check down, number 1. And number 2, just the overall team pass attempts have plummeted, going from, when they've changed their offense. And Michael Thomas very much has experienced that. He had a good first game with Taysom Hill, but then had 4 for 50 scoreless last week. And he's like a wide receiver 3. And Latavius Murray has really started to become almost the engine of the offense. And, it feels uncomfortable to say, but I think that his value is almost on par with Alvin Kamara's at this point.
It's wild to say, man, but I think you nailed it. Right now, both Latavius Murray and Taysom Hill have more rush attempts inside the 10-yard line than Kamara. Yeah, man, it's the receptions that, on every mind. But to your point, the lack of goal line rushing opportunities are not helping at all because this year, Kamara, he actually had, I believe, 6 scores inside the 5-yard line. He was getting that touchdown regression we were hoping for after, last season where he was getting pretty unlucky with it. And now, we used to have to worry about Taysom Hill maybe coming in for a snap or 2 inside the 10. He's out there all the freaking time now. So one interesting thing I found, he only has 1 catch over the past 2 weeks, but on the season, he still has 10 additional catches on swings, screens, bubbles, and jet sweeps, this type of manufactured stuff. Sean Payton's not an idiot. They should be able to get Kamara, one of their best players, these design touches. I know what you're saying, based on what we've seen, it's him and Latavius looking pretty even, but come on, we see this reception spike a little bit, right?
I hope. As someone that, I never wavered off having Alvin Kamara as a top 4 fantasy pick and wound up therefore, because a lot of people moved them down during the contract thing and it was the same thing with Dalvin Cook. The thing in the back. What was the back thing?
Oh, yeah. He had a scary back thing right before the season started. Yeah.
Yeah. So people were jamming him down their list, and we never moved him. I wound up getting him on a bunch of my late draft teams. So I hope that Sean Payton figures it out. But He's been, what's really there to figure out though? I mean, the Saints are crushing in their current form, and their defense is elite too. I mean, it's crazy how every year their defense starts off the season like first 6-7 weeks, it's atrocious. All of a sudden, boom, they get it together and like they're a top 5 defense the rest of the way. It's happening again this year.
Yeah, 28 points allowed over the past 4 weeks total. I understand they played, a freaking practice squad wide receiver convert last week, but even before then, we saw them, take down the Buccaneers, Falcons. Truly impressive performances. All right, moving on. So, Evan, if you can pick any wide receiver in the NFL to be in your fantasy team for the next 10 years, who would it be, and why is it DK Metcalf? Right? It's got to be.
I mean, I'm not going to argue hard against DK Metcalf, but I do think that there are guys in his realm. Tyreek Hill, number one. He's already locked up to a long-term contract, and Patrick Mahomes, obviously, he's not going anywhere. Justin Jefferson has been, I think even better than anyone expected. Certainly better than people in the NFL. I mean, a lot of receiver-needy teams passed on him. He went, 22nd overall? He's been better than anyone. He's like the best vertical receiver in the league already. And this was a dude who was playing slot receiver last year at LSU. Leads the NFL in yards per route run. A.J. Brown, come on now. I think we're going to talk a little bit more about him later in the show, so we'll save it for that. And then, the god dropling that is Chase Claypool. I don't think he's really in that tier, but he's the closest athletic comparison to Megatron in the league right now.
Yeah, all right. I'm with you. Metcalf, Tyreek Hill, I think those are kind of the primary conversations. It's almost like at some point, like, okay, obviously Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, I think we'd agree those are better, like pure wide receivers. But you put one of these freaks on the field that can just run by everyone. I almost think that's more valuable for an offense to have these days. Like, putting fantasy aside for a second, like Tyreek Hill might be the most impactful wide receiver in the league, and Metcalf might be too. I think, if you're just building an offense, would you maybe want like one of those guys ahead of just a true polished, route runner like a Keenan or Devontae type?
I don't know, but the question was 10 years. So I think
I'm changing it.
I know, but the original question was 10 years.
Yeah.
So I think that you have to start with everyone that isn't, Devontae Adams and DeAndre Hopkins, like maybe for the next 5 years, maybe. But those dudes are like 27, 28.
True.
So we're starting with the really, really young dudes. If you're asking about a receiver that you would just want on your real life team, was that the second question?
Yeah, I guess so. I'm with you on the fantasy side of the question, Metcalf or Tyreek. I'm saying, taking a step back, looking like if you were building a team in real life, would you think you'd be better off taking one of these less polished but still great Metcalf or Tyreek, or, the route running, just perfect alpha, can do everything, but maybe not quite as explosive downfield, maybe can't open things up for the teammates in the same way?
I think I'd go with the alpha athlete.
I think so, man. We've seen it with Deshaun Watson's, Will Fuller splits and stuff. Like, just having that speed threat out there can open up everything.
I know.
Whew. All right. I want to talk about another big time alpha number one wide receiver. You alluded to it earlier. So a couple of weeks ago, I drunk texted you, had a couple of glasses of sheesh, after watching some football. And I was just, really feeling the AJB wide receiver one season. I bark about it almost every podcast, every Sunday on Twitter, twice a day on Sundays. But asked you, I was like, could AJ Brown maybe be the best wide receiver in the NFL as early as next year? Your response, he's Terrell Owens. I freaking love it, man. I'm not sure if that was your original comp, you heard it from someone, whatever. I think it's spot on. And look, you look at this Titans offense and like Jonnu Smith, Derrick Henry, of course, should have mentioned him first, and AJ Brown, like just one freak after another. All of a sudden, you look at the schedule in the year, they could be in a really good spot ending this season just on fire. Are the Titans right now the biggest threat to the Chiefs to come out of the AFC?
Well, I think that you would have to say that it's the Steelers. I mean, the Steelers have sort of earned that. They are 11-0. I agree with George Charuri, though, that they are overrated. Did you see the comments below?
Getting killed.
His little snippet calling the Steelers overrated, like the entire Steelers fan base mounted up against PFF, and no credibility. Like, what credibility do you have as like a biased fan? But anyways, I think it's got to be the Steelers that are the biggest threat to the Chiefs in the AFC. But after that, I think the Titans are near the top of the list. They're not just, what they were last year which was, a very run-centric offense. I mean, when they get into games where they need to throw the ball, they've got A.J. Brown, Corey Davis have an excellent year.
Yep.
Adam Humphries eventually will be back to give him like a possession slot receiver. Not that he's a difference maker, but he gives them like diversity with their position, with their skill position packages. And I mean, Derrick Henry obviously is just an absolute monster. It's amazing how they have kept together an elite run blocking unit, even after losing Taylor Lewan and getting nothing from their first round offensive tackle pick, Isaiah Wilson, who, hey, he might be able to become a factor down the stretch. And I mean, Isaiah Wilson is 6'7", 350 pounds. So, he was the guy who was drafted to replace Jack Conklin. He ended up on the COVID list multiple times, made some, dumb, mistakes, as like a really, really young person, in his life, which, I never banged dudes for, because if I was 21 and I just got a $3 million signing bonus, like, good Lord, like I'd be 100%. I'd be doing way dumber shit than these dudes. But with the Titans, they're absolutely, and their defense has started to sort of like, I don't know, their defense has been a problem all year, but Adoree Jackson, who has been out for a long time, he's back in practice, and they've been a little bit better lately defensively. This was a team that in Mike Vrabel's first 2 years, they didn't give up points, but this year they've given up points. And I would say that that's probably the biggest question right now with the Titans. If you want to go a little bit deeper, I mean, the Raiders have given the Chiefs problems twice. I'm not a Raiders believer, and that was very much, I received a lot of confirmation bias from that last week in their 43-6 loss to Atlanta. But, they've given the Chiefs problems in 2 games. And I think that they're, still in potentially position to make the playoffs. And the Browns are 8-3, and they can run the damn ball. And, we know that that's not necessarily in the big picture, that's not necessarily the most efficient way to play. But when you can run it at the clip that they run it, and then you get efficient quarterback play, and then, you're sound on defense, you're not terrible on defense, and you can run on the Chiefs. I mean, this is, really over the past few years, the formula to beating the Chiefs has been to control the ball against them, limit the Chiefs' offensive possessions, keep Patrick Mahomes off the field, and exploit the shit out of their terrible run defense. And that's something that the Browns could do.
Yeah, man. And let's real quick stay on that matchup, because I'm seeing the Titans sitting as 5.5-point favorites against the Browns this week. I went on You Better Bet, great podcast earlier today, and I like the Browns as plus 5.5. If that gets up to 6, man, especially. But to me, that's one of the best bets of the week. They're getting Myles Garrett back. Everyone, and including myself, I threw a joke at Baker Mayfield after that miss to Rashard Higgins. But if you watch that game as a whole last week, I know it was against the Jaguars, but one efficient throw after another. Really, the 3 weeks before that were just one, bad weather game in Cleveland after another. Like this passing game, even if they're not amazing, they're not going to have the same ceiling that they would with OBJ. They're doable when Baker's at least dealing a little bit. You like the Browns plus 5.5 this week?
Yes, I actually bet that and parlayed it with the over on that game, which I didn't like initially because, I mean, it's set at 54. That's a lot of points for 2 run-heavy teams. But, as I dug more into the matchup, I'm like, man, both of these teams are going to be able to move their offenses against each other. And you get much better odds betting the Brown side and betting the over in that game. So I parlayed those 2 together, and so yeah, I'm with you on that.
I like it. All right, question number 4. I'm gonna give you a bunch of rookie running backs. You don't need to break down each of them. Just tell me who would be your 2021 RB1 from this class. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor, Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins, Antonio Gibson, James Robinson. Go.
This is such a difficult question. I think I'm going to go with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but I don't have a level of confidence about that, number 1. Number 2, I think that Antonio Gibson is a guy that could get sensationally hyped leading up to next year and might end up being like a back-end first-round pick in redraft leagues. We got a long way to go, but Antonio Gibson, I think he's going to finish the season strong. He can absolutely play in the pass game. I know that J.D. McKissic has pulled a lot of production away, but I mean, that was his strength coming out of college, coming out of Memphis. And he has shown, I mean, I think he gets better as a runner every single week. So I don't know. He's a dangerous dude who might end up having the highest ADP out of all these RBs, I think. But by the time we're doing this again next August.
To me, Gibson has like that true McCaffrey-esque touch ceiling in his range of outcomes. My question, man, James Robinson like already has that role we want. Now he came as this undrafted guy out of nowhere. And I think we tend to, when an undrafted guy comes out of nowhere, we just assume it's going to stop at some point. Evan, we've been through 3 quarterbacks in Jacksonville. Nothing has really changed. The only constant we've seen in this Jaguars offense all year is they want to feed James Robinson. You and me were both on team. Like, do not trust Leonard Fournette going into this year. Don't touch this dude with a freaking 10-foot pole. But James Robinson, like, I feel like this could be a situation where we keep expecting Jacksonville to sign someone, to draft someone. If we make it to May, man, and they haven't added like a legit threat, this could be a slam dunk James Robinson.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to say anything disparaging about James Robinson. He's had one of the best, really not even undrafted rookie, but one of the best rookie running back seasons of all time. And his ability to just hog usage in that backfield, even though, he's technically got like scrubs behind him, still has been super, super impressive. My concern is with these undrafted guys, regardless of how oftentimes even how good they are, when you start to change regimes and, they already fired their GM and, they probably will have a new head coach and, very potentially a new offensive coordinator and, a new quarterback. And, you never know what's going to go on, but between now and then, especially, when they have no real investment in him, actual, investment in James Robinson. So that would be the lone factor working against him. Other than that, I mean, he's been he's been marvelous as a rookie.
As always, many pieces of the puzzle we got to figure out all off season, but we got time for that a little bit later. All right, question number 5. Breshad Perriman is on a 1-year, $6.5 million deal with the Jets. Man, he's someone that, to me, like my biggest miss of the entire 2019 season was when he was out there end of the year. Godwin and Evans were hurt, and I was like, no, I can't play Breshad Perriman. It's Breshad Perriman. Just dumb, didn't work out, but we fixed that. We're getting better. We're improving. In Cleveland, Tampa Bay, and now New York, this man has reinvented himself as a bona fide stud receiver, man. So again, let's assume he leaves the Jets. Please, for the love of God, leave the Jets. If you could play perfect offseason matchmaker from a fantasy perspective, what team do you want Breshad Perriman on in 2021?
Yeah, so I'm on team Breshad Perriman has always been good.
Fair.
But I mean, I understand, the lack of confidence at certain points, obviously. He began his career, he didn't even really play as a rookie due to this PCL injury, just a brutal PCL injury. And like, it almost seemed like there was infighting between the coaching staff and Breshad Perriman, where John Harbaugh would come out and be like, hey, we think he's healthy, but he's not practicing. And it seemed like, the team itself was pissed off at Breshad Perriman. And then when he got in there, like he had like no confidence. I mean, imagine being the first round pick who, got a $2.7 million signing bonus. And, every day, all the veterans on the Ravens, respected veterans, are walking past this dude. They're making less money than Breshad Perriman. They're looking at him like, you're not even out there, chump, and like, I mean, like, this is a real deal. Like, if you go back and look at like first round and even second round receivers that didn't play as rookies, their bust rate is just so high. And I think that, like Kevin White would be another one. And I mean, often it's caused by injuries, and you can, the easiest way to chalk it up is to an injury. But I mean, imagine like the loss of confidence and being looked at, you're a 21, 22-year-old dude, just entered the league, and, 32-year-old Calais Campbell's like, why aren't you out there, man? You're making more money than me, and
same thing with John Ross. That's another reason why.
John Ross is absolutely another good example. If you just go back and look at like wide receiver picks that, over the last like 20 years that didn't play as rookies, like they almost never pan out. But Breshad Perriman has sort of like gotten it together. His dad played in the NFL and was like a legit, really good player for a long time. Brett Perriman. Also, his early in his career, like his dad was like almost on his deathbed. So he experienced like an extreme amount, an overwhelming amount of early career diversity. Got jettisoned by the Ravens. Ends up with the Browns. The Browns give him a shot, and he didn't play a whole lot, but when he did, like he made big plays. And then the Bucs last year, took a shot on him. And when he got an opportunity, he made big plays. And when he's been healthy this year, he has shown big playability. So I'm on team Breshad Perriman has actually always been good. Now he's going to be changing to like freaking his 16, already. And, we know there's already generally a problem with wide receivers changing teams.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he just, again, has so much adversity working against him. But the first team that I came up with was Deshaun Watson and the Texans to replace Will Fuller. I think that's an absolutely natural fit. And then I looked at Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. I don't know what they think about Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Obviously, Marquez Valdes-Scantling he's just like the most boom bust player in the entire NFL. He'll drop a 75-yard touchdown pass but he's getting open for that 75-yard touchdown pass, and the next time he'll catch it. So I don't know where they are with Marquez Valdes-Scantling. And then I think that, another good option would be just for him to stay with the Jets and maybe play with Trevor Lawrence and, be their number one perimeter receiver, at least, complement Denzel Mims in that role. And they bring back Jamison Crowder, and all of a sudden, I mean, that's like that's not a terrible 3 receiver set if they can keep those dudes healthy.
I wrote down 3 teams: Green Bay, Houston. I'm with you. What about a team that's losing Marvin Jones, unrestricted free agent next year? Matthew Stafford, Detroit Lions, man. I love Aaron Rodgers. He does a bit on Pat McAfee show every week now. And I was watching it, and McAfee was giving him shit about saying, oh, like, good thing, Patrick Mahomes came in and just introduced the, no-look pass to everyone. Rodgers was talking about how, the coaches literally had to tell him to stop doing no-look passes when he was on the scout team quarterback, because Favre had, helped teach him, and he was so good at this. But anyway, Rodgers took a step back and was just like, who doesn't get nearly enough credit for some of the things he does with the ball and what he can do with his arm? Matthew Stafford. And it's been an up and down year this year, man. 2019 was a much better year overall, but you talk about just a dysfunctional organization. We got to see where the coaching staff lands and stuff, but I feel like, Stafford's arm, like, far from, like, this guy's still got some good years. If we can get a legit number 2 next to Kenny Golladay, that could be a legit offense.
Absolutely. And, that's a very much a vertical offense. I mean, the ways that, like, if you remember when Jim Bob Cooter was their OC and they were running the offense funneling the offense through Theo Riddick and Golden Tate, that's when people started to question whether Matthew Stafford was actually good. But when he's been stretched out and allowed to, throw the ball down the football field, like, he's been excellent. He's not old still, he's like 33, 34, which is still, end peak time for quarterbacks. Golladay is not going anywhere. Hawkinson's not going anywhere. I like that fit.
Swift looks good too. Yes. Detroit, Green Bay, Houston. Come on, Breshad, make it happen. Or to your point, Trevor Lawrence in New York, we could be talking with that too. All right. You mentioned the Raiders a little bit before. Let's talk about them. Derek Carr and company were awful against the Falcons. Cannot say a single good thing about that performance last week, but that doesn't take away everything that happened in weeks 1 through 11. And I get it. Twitter was quick to say same old Raiders, but I truly believe this Raiders offense has taken a little bit of a step forward, because since week 5, Evan, Derek Carr has a 13.7% deep ball rate. That's when Henry Ruggs came back against the Chiefs. So it's not, a random split. It makes sense getting their field stretcher back. That's 6th among 37 qualified quarterbacks. That's ahead of Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. He's always had the ability to throw deep. He just hasn't done it all that much. Now he's doing it. I feel like this has opened up a new version of him and the Raiders offense. Am I reading far too much into this? I mean, do you think Carr has actually turned things around and could be a legit franchise QB for years to come? I know he's been paid like one, but we both know he was not playing like one, recent history. Do you think that we could actually be seeing a new Derek Carr in 2021 and beyond?
I'm a pretty entrenched Derek Carr skeptic. I think that the offense has been, at times, like, I've had issues with the way that the Raiders have built their team. But I don't think that you can criticize the way that their offense is run. I think that John Gruden, even over the past 2 years, like, he has shown himself to be a pretty good offensive designer. And when you watch Raiders games this year, I mean, Derek Carr makes so many throws with 6 to 7 yards between him and the nearest defender. And that's not all just offensive line, because, I mean, they haven't had Trent Brown. They haven't had Richie Incognito. And it's a lot of scheme. And also, I mean, John Gruden is getting guys open in the scheme. I mean, they're maximizing, like, Nelson Aguilar. They're maximizing, Hunter Renfrow, and they've gotten big plays elsewhere as well. I think that the offense is designed, like, really well, and to maximize the way that the quarterback looks. But I think at the end of the day, like Derek Carr he still doesn't give you enough aggressiveness. Like Henry Ruggs has been maddeningly underutilized. I think even Darren Waller has been underutilized. Derek Carr doesn't add anything, even though he's like technically a good athlete. He never like has positive scrambles. So I just think he's a middling NFL quarterback, and he's a guy that puts a ceiling on them as a team. Their defense still isn't very good. Josh Jacobs is solid, but he's like always banged up. I don't know. I think they're like, a 7 to 9 win team this year.
Okay. Fair points all around. Yeah, with Gruden, man, I feel like when he came back, a lot of us were just expecting, this old school football coach probably wouldn't, it really wouldn't be successful. But man, I was in Cincy at the PFF offices a few weeks ago talking to Eric Eager, one of our residential just ballers over there. And, with some of our, just play caller rankings, John Gruden, top 5. So, I mean, truly, yeah, you said, get scheming guys open. He was doing it last year, but really whole lot of success this year with it. All right. I want to talk about our guy, Cam Newton. He's been through a lot over the past few seasons. Ultimately, this year, he's been out there every single week, except for the Chiefs game where he had COVID. Cam's been up and down as a passer, but a lot of down. I'm putting that nicely. But clearly, the Patriots lacking overall talent, not exactly, a good situation to win. And we can all see why Tom Brady took his talents to Tampa Bay. But they're 5-6, 3 losses that could have gone either way. One, do you think the 2020 Patriots have any chance of getting hot and, snagging a wild card or something? And 2, has Cam done enough to warrant a 2021 starting opportunity in New England or elsewhere?
So first of all, Cam Newton has been a very difficult evaluation this year. First of all, he barely even played in 2019. So he was coming back from like a lost season and was signed very late in the process, and, had to learn like maybe the most complex offense in the entire NFL on the fly. And the Patriots have done, about as good of a job as they possibly could, like meeting him in the middle and understanding what his strengths and weaknesses are. But they certainly haven't done a good job of surrounding him with talent when Jacoby Myers is like the clear-cut number 1 option in their passing game. And then Damiere Byrd, who literally, when Cam was in Carolina, could not even get on the 53. Like he was a practice squad preseason dude. And actually there was 1 week in preseason DFS, RIP in peace, where I had Damiere Byrd and Joe Webb. And like I made like 25 lineups with just Damiere Byrd and Joe Webb, and they just went off, and I just won like everything. It was one of those situations on FanDuel where like, you go to like the first page of the tournament, and like I had all of the top 10 lineups. That was my last probably big win in preseason DFS ever. But yeah, I mean, Damiere Byrd is like leading them in all the receivers in snaps. Ryan Izzo, Devin Asiasi, and Dalton Keene at tight end. I mean, come on. They don't have any talent to surround him with. So he's been a really difficult evaluation. With that said, they are 5-6 right now.
Mm-hmm.
And
5-6.
There are 7 teams, I think, making the playoffs in each conference, correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
So that's 14 teams out of 32. That's like almost half the league. That's 44% of the league making the playoffs. This additional Ravens loss to Pittsburgh really helped the Patriots. The Patriots beat the Ravens straight up, and now the Ravens are. I'm remembering that correctly, right? Yes.
Yeah, they did.
Yes.
Sunday night.
Yeah, I bet that game, and I had the Patriots outright. But so now the Ravens are down to 6-5, and the Patriots will have the outright tiebreaker against them. Let's look at the last 5 games for the Pats.
I got
Chargers.
Okay.
The Chargers just find a way to lose. I love Justin Herbert, but they just find a way to lose.
They're getting a point this week.
Yeah. What?
Madness. I think Chargers are getting a point.
Yeah.
Madness, yeah. Evan. Madness.
And then at the Rams, that'll be tough. At the Dolphins, I mean, the Dolphins they're solid, but they're beatable. Then versus the Bills, that's a tough one, but it's in Foxborough, and the Bills have been such a different team offense without John Brown, and now he's on IR. And then they play the Jets. So it could come down, I think, to that last game against the freaking Jets, who are going to be incentivized to lose, as to whether the Patriots end up winning, being one of the final top 7 teams in the AFC.
Yeah, and you look at them, I mean, they're 5-6, and I know we can go play hindsight doctor and pick through a lot of teams' records, but just for a second with the Patriots, I mean, the Seahawks game, literally ball at the 1, they lose in the final play of the game. Broncos, they were driving inside the 25, open Damiere Byrd, Cam couldn't put it on them, and Bills driving inside the 20 again, they lose a fumble, maybe going to score at a minimum, going to OT. So certainly a team that's probably played a little bit better than their record. And to your point, yes, Cam, hardest quarterback in the league, I think, this year too, just try to figure out what's going on. To his credit, second most catchable deep ball rate this year behind only the Titans. New England Patriots aren't throwing deep too often, but just realize, like, anyone out there trying to put all these problems on Cam, it's been a team effort. And, the fact they are sitting here at 5-6 with a chance, I think it's a testament to everyone that they've even been this competitive.
Yeah, Levitan took the stance before the season that he was not going to like Cam. And so every week after Cam has like a good week, he never says anything about Cam. But then whenever Cam has a bad week, he's just like, oh, God, I can't believe that, you guys liked him, So.
I've heard Levy being pretty quiet about my guy, Curtis Samuel, playing well lately. He said last year, I believe, KJ Hamler in college would have had 1,500 yards in that Panthers offense. But
yeah, Levitan doesn't say anything about Gronk either anymore.
Oh my gosh. It's been a great comeback from Gronk for sure. All right. We mentioned this a little before, but yeah, my guy, PFF George, caught a ton of flack over the past week for calling the Steelers the most overrated team in the league. His point was pretty much like they're undefeated, but this is not, if you look at their advanced metrics and just Roethlisberger's play as a whole, like this is not your typical juggernaut undefeated team. They took on the Ravens today. Evan, it was not pretty. A win is a win, but, against a team that had 5 net passing yards going in the fourth quarter, numerous chances, just, sloppy game from the Steelers. They got the win, but whatever. You look at their final schedule, though, we got the Washington football team, the Bills, the Bengals, the Colts, and the Browns. Okay, I mean, there's some good teams on there, sure, but they have a legit chance to go undefeated. I probably would bet against it happening, but they do have a chance regardless. Once we get into January, they have a shot in hell hanging with Mahomes and company, because to your point, we need someone that can control the ball. The Steelers cannot really run, but Big Ben, he's getting the ball out so fast. They're almost controlling the ball through the passing game. What are your thoughts on Steelers Chiefs when it comes down to it in January?
I mean, I just completely agree with what George said. And these fans that think that PFF is like biased against their team are just so it's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. It's true that Ben is, and this all that was George was saying, which is so simple and so true, is that Ben is like a middle of the pack NFL quarterback. I probably would, he said in the 15 to 25 range, I would definitely lean toward the high end of that range. And I might even give him 12 to 20, like 12 to 20. Mm-hmm. Just fair. Because Ben has been so smart. He's not giving the ball to the other team. That, that counts for a lot, especially when you have a great defense and, you can make big plays in the past. I mean, he's been a really smart quarterback this year. He's not taking sacks. He's been an asset for their offense, and especially considering what the expectations were coming into the year. I mean, some people thought he was just absolutely dust, that he was absolutely done. And I mean, I understood. I wasn't on that side. I was hammering the Steelers over, but at 9.5 wins. But I understood that side of the argument. I was a little bit worried that could be the case. But I mean, shit, they hit that over, at the soonest possible opportunity. And they're a really good football team. I don't even think they're in the same tier as the Chiefs, though.
Yeah. I remember in the offseason, really, I do team needs usually sometime in February. I'm just going through every position group and every team. And the Bills and Steelers were the two ones that stuck out to me. Like, wow, they just every single position group almost pretty good. Exactly. I don't know if you saw, man, but the Steelers, dude, they've now lost Bud Dupree. Yeah, what's up?
Ian, I used to do that for Roto World, where I would literally go through every single position group, the starting lineup, the second team. And that is so illuminating, just that process, just to go through every team like that. It's so illuminating. It will make you a much better football analyst, and it's something that will absolutely improve your process. So you're a freaking workhorse. I'm not surprised that you're doing that kind of stuff.
I appreciate it, man. But yeah, 100%. And then that allows you for the rest of the offseason, see if they've addressed those needs and if they have a chance to overcome that. So yeah, man. But I was just going to say, so Steelers, they're so complete. They still really are. But Bud Dupree now, tore his ACL, unfortunately. So he's going to miss the rest of the year. Devin Bush left before. I mean, I remember in 2017, I believe, when Shazier suffered that unfortunate injury. But, defense really tanked after that. Obviously, this is a different year, a different version. They have talent at all three levels. But, I think George's point, one of his points too, is that this defense isn't going to keep playing at this high of a level, particularly against a team like the Chiefs. You can only take so many injuries. We'll see, man. I would say that they deserve to be, ahead of the Titans, but hopefully this pass rush can keep it up without Dupree. They got Hayward, they got Tuitt, they got TJ Watt, still plenty of guys, but, sucks that Dupree is gone. All right, Evan, this is what the people wanted to hear. It's Josh Allen. Our guy has overcome all the haters, has the Bills stand at 8-3. He's a QB4 in fantasy land through 12 weeks of action. Now, the second half schedule is what scared a lot of people away at first. And we look at it now, sure looks a lot easier. And, we're talking on December 2nd versus in August. We got the 49ers, Steelers, Broncos, and Patriots. With or without Dupree, we know the Steelers are still very tough. But these other three teams, while they're still very well coached, they just lost a lot of talent through opt-outs, injuries, whatever throughout the year. So going into Championship Sunday, are you still firing up Josh Allen as a top 5 QB?
Well, first of all, I would say that this is a textbook example of, people that try to plan their fantasy decisions and their fantasy teams around are these players going to play in the fantasy playoffs is just, I think it's for donkeys. Yeah. What you want to do is you want to get off to a hot start. And then you actually hope, so you want to be really highlighting players that are playing against defenses that we expect to be bad early in the season, which is how it's set up for Josh Allen. And then on the back end, I was concerned about the defenses that he was going to be facing in the back end, but also, injuries could tear them apart. And the NFL, the NFL is not, a static league where, it's predictable what's happening late in the season. What's happening late in the season is so much changed by injuries. And now we look at these teams that the Bills are facing down the stretch, and they're not nearly as imposing as they were, as they appeared to be entering the year. At the same time, an offense can be ravaged by injuries. And the Bills have not been ravaged by injuries. But the one big injury that they have had is John Brown. And the splits with and without him being ineffective or inactive are tremendous. And even in this last game where Gabriel Davis stepped up and played really, really well against the Chargers, they still, I think undershot what we expected from them offensively. I know they scored 27 and they won the game, but Josh Allen did not play to expectations, even from a fantasy standpoint. He was still a top 12, top 14 quarterback on the week. So what are we talking about here? Week 13 against San Francisco on Monday night?
Yeah, we have 49ers. I just mean it's 49ers, Steelers, Broncos, Patriots. So pretty much if you were ranking the whole group of quarterbacks, do you still think Josh Allen would be in your top 5, guys you want for the rest of the way? Or is he just more of a lower end QB1?
I would say lower end QB1.
Okay. Real quick, I want to touch on this John Brown thing because I've looked at this too. Yeah. And I feel like we might be cherry picking a little bit here. We look at week 3. Smokey Brown played 29 snaps, 2 catchless targets. He was playing hurt. He missed the following games. Josh Allen threw for 311 yards and 4 scores against the Rams. He has not played well in weeks 5, 7, and 12 without Brown. He's also not played well in weeks 1, 6, 8, and 10 with Brown. I feel like with Josh Allen, okay, we're probably not getting that just complete world beater that was happening in weeks 1 through 3. So I understand that goes into it as well. But I feel like with Josh, the things that we love him in fantasy for are the fact that when they get inside the 10-yard line, he is always trying to run for touchdowns. And he's 10th in dropbacks this year. They really let him throw the ball around most weeks to his heart's desire. I feel like that volume's not going anywhere, even though the Bills, yes, they'd be better off with John Brown than without. I feel like we still want to chase that volume, and that should still be there. I feel like they're not going to be passing the ball just less because John Brown's out of the lineup.
Well, I'm not going to let you set me up to become the Josh Allen hater on this show. So I will be pulling for Josh Allen. I've got him in Scott Fishbowl. My team is pretty good. We finished second in our division. It's not one of the best teams in the Scott Fishbowl, but we've got a shot. And so I will be, trying to pull this out with Josh Allen as my catalyst.
I'm happy you passed that test, Evan. You're still our fearless president of the Josh Allen fan club. All right, last question, man. Thank you again for the time as always. So a genie comes to you tomorrow, grants you a single wish for week 13. Woe to BMY. Mine is that Dez Bryant scores a jump ball touchdown against the Cowboys and gets to throw up the X for the first time since 2018. Not looking good, but again, we get to guarantee it. What's your genie
Not
wish?
looking good. I mean, what do you think Dez Bryant's vertical is at this point?
I don't care. I'm happy he came back from an Achilles, and that's that. No one can ever take away 2012 through 2014 from us, Evan. Nobody.
Yeah. I guess my genie in the bottle wish would be that Will Fuller's suspension somehow gets overturned. Because I have him like on 60% of my teams. And I mean, I love Will Fuller. Like, dude is a straight baller. I mean, it's been so fun to, dunk on injury forecast Twitter because, I mean, they're having a rough year. I mean, everybody's getting hurt, yet all the guys that they forecast to get hurt aren't getting hurt, so that's been great. But I wish that we could have Will Fuller down the stretch. I mean, at least like by week 16 against the Bengals at home, they'll be playing indoors at, I don't know what they call it now, NRG Stadium. We'll be playing indoors against the freaking Bengals in week 16. Can we just have Will Fuller back for week 16?
Real quick, Brandon Cooks, he's been a top 15 receiver with Fuller. I mean, we're not expecting like top 5 production, but he's still easy upside wide receiver 2 every week.
I mean, I think that we can expect something in the range of double-digit targets on average the rest of the way.
Okay. Yeah, and I would say, there's bad Deshaun Watson on-off splits with Fuller. I get that. Brandon Cooks has increased the yards per attempt. Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Jared Goff, and Deshaun Watson, wherever he's gone. And yeah, I mean, I love the point about all these, guys that, when you talked about them in July, talking about their situation and this and that, and then just someone goes, no, they're going to get injured, man. Like, how could you possibly do this? Will Fuller, James Conner, Evan Ingram, Carson Wentz, Cam Newton, all those front runners have seemingly stayed healthy. Absolutely love it. Evan,
well, injury forecast Twitter has been, making us money for, year over year. I mean, when you think that you can actually predict injuries, start a website, get rich, put us all under, until then, we'll be fading the injury prediction Twitter and, hopefully continuing to profit like we have majorly over the past half decade.
If someone comes into a season hurt, that's entirely different.
Right.
No, the hell 100%. But yeah, come on, guys. Evan, that's going to do it, man. Thank you for the time. All right. Everyone can find you at Evan Silva. What else, man? Establish a Run, one of the best content sites out there. You're the freaking man. Got anything else to pitch?
That's all I got, man. Thanks so much for having me in.
Thank you, Evan. That's going to do it, everybody. He's Evan Silva. I'm Ian Hartitz. This has been the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast, bringing you new episodes every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Try and get you that good fantasy football information and get you the money. Hopefully have a fun time doing so. So that's going to do it. And until next time, take care, everybody.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel. And if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.